Webinar number 1, Gender Basics. We're all EasySpeak fans here, and we're at various levels of expertise. And we've got people from around the world with us tonight, from Jordan, from Finland, from New Zealand, and I'm just waiting to see where else people are from. So what you might like to do is to put that location for yourself into the text chat again, just so that everyone who has just come into the room knows where you are. I'm located in Victoria, Australia, and I'm on the border between the 2 states. I do know that EasySpeak is used throughout the world. I'm not sure how many users there are, must be several thousand, because I know that there are many, many clubs that are fans of EasySpeak. Oh, Laura, you're close to me in New South Wales. The other thing we just did for a moment was to share what level we think our expertise is for our use of EasySpeak. And you might also like to add into the text chat which clubs you belong to and or which roles you have had. Whilst you're doing that, I'll go into my introduction about what this EasySpeak Help Desk is all about. I have been doing this for a few years now, and I'm really wanting to expand my reach for those who are wanting to learn more about EasySpeak. So I've started up the help desk idea, and that's been going for 2 years. And during July, I usually put on 2 or more webinars. So this is the first one of those for this particular winter set. Well, winter for me in Australia anyway. I do have a online flyer that tells people all about that. So I'm just going to text that into text chat you and to let them know about the help desk situation. I've been using that little smore.com tool for some time now, so you might like to explore that for yourself. And Marietta, I can see that you've written me a private chat message that you're back. Switch over now to main chat so that we can see what you type in. Thank you, Kevin, for adding all of your clubs in there and your various roles. And what I've asked Kevin to do tonight is just to keep his eye on the text chat. And if you have some questions, you might alert me to that, Kevin. So I'll give you back your voice so that you can prompt me if necessary. Okay, so tonight's webinar is all about agendas. So I wanted to start with some of the more usual day-to-day type of tasks that we need to fulfill in our EasySpeak site. So I'm intending to go through these items. You won't be able to read the actual agenda that's on the right, it's a bit small, but I just wanted to give you an example of how it might look when you have a printed agenda, and probably some of you are already well aware of that. So I'm going to create a meeting agenda for you, customize a template, and show you the printing agenda options. And then we'll have a look at the ways of filling your agendas through assignments and scheduling. And if we have time, we'll go into a little more detail about requesting and speeches, as well as educationals, because they sometimes throw the new EasySpeak user. That's correct, the recording is running now. Thank you, Kevin. So that's my agenda for today. And to start us off, I wanted to do a little demonstration about how to actually create a meeting. And I'm a little bit dubious as to how well this is going to work, so bear with me, because I wanted to share a screen with you for this. I wanted to do that. I've got to bring up my Google Chrome, make sure it's on the right page, and then go to full screen. Let's see if you can see what I see. My computer was running a little tonight, so if this doesn't work, I'm going to revert back to my slides. Still waiting to show my screen. What I'm using is a playground Easy Speak site. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called the King Arthur's Playground. It's a very useful way of getting to know how to make the things happen in Easy Speak. No, it threw me out. Uh-oh. Didn't like my screen sharing. Never mind. At the end, I will share the link to King Arthur's Playground for you. Excuse me one moment. My voice again. Absolutely, Kevin and Peter, we will get the URL for that playground later on. When you do get it, you'll see on the front page this little picture that you can see on my slide, which is of King Arthur's castle. Now, it's a fictitious area and they are fictitious members, and the VPE is Minnie Mouse. So whenever I go in to practice what I need to do, I always go in as Minnie Mouse. So if you wanted to do that in the URL I'm going to give you later, you would enter as Minnie and the password is fun for us. So keep that in mind. You might like to jot that down somewhere. So what I did, knowing that the real demonstration might not work, is I've got some screen images of those things as we work through them. So I'll show you those now. So when you go to create a meeting, this is the screen that pops up for you. Now there are two ways that you can create a meeting. You might like to tell me what way you use in the text chat. So there are two places in EasySpeak where the VPE can go to find the create a meeting page. So we'll just see what others think about that one. So when you get the page up, there's several things. Are you not seeing my slides, Lucy? I'll just double check with everybody else. Are you all seeing my slides now? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay. So Lucy, I'm not sure if there's something wrong with your connection there. We'll see if it comes clearer for you. Yes, it is a club meeting slide. It's a little bit hard to read, but oh, thanks for that, Lucy. All right, so when you come to this page, you fill in the details that are required. And that means the event type. So at the top, there is the Toastmaster meeting, the committee meeting, or other event. Then you key in the date that you want this meeting to be on. It should automatically give you the very next date that's available, given that you've done the setup, and the system should know how frequently your meetings are scheduled. Oh, we've got quite a few more people coming in. Welcome to all those who've just joined us. The next thing is you make sure that the time is correct, and that also should be according to the page details that you've put in place, but double check that. Sometimes you're running a committee meeting that might be at a slightly different time. The venue, of course, is in your locations menu, and in your setup you would have already keyed in the bricks and mortar location or the online location for your club. And below that is the name of the club, and in this case it's King Arthur's Playground. The meeting number will be automatic because it will add up the meetings that have come before. The next thing for you to fill in is the meeting theme, if you have one, and which type of agenda you want to use. You would most likely also set the meeting manager. And for me in my clubs, the meeting manager is most often the Toastmaster of the day. And below that, you might put in some special notes in the message body as you create a meeting. But of course, you can amend that later on. So that's the starting point for creating a regular Toastmaster meeting agenda. And here on these slides, I've got a few little images of what it looks like in an agenda where you've already created it and it's awaiting some assignments to happen. So I'm sure you're familiar with this sort of look on your agenda. When you then go through the process of assigning the roles, let me go back a slide. So we have one evaluator in this particular meeting, Peter Pan, and above that would have been the speakers. You would then need to assign the roles for the other items on your agenda, such as other evaluators, club business, topic evaluator, warm-up, awards, all of those different items that you might put into your agenda. So in the text chat, can you tell me what some of those extra things are that you would want to put in your agenda? Each club will be slightly different in this respect. So let's get some different perspectives happening in the text chat. And I see quite a few more people have joined us. Thank you so much. We're currently looking at how to set up our very first agenda. And the screen images that I'm using are from the King Arthur's Playground, which is a fictitious Easy Speak site. So here's some ideas for you. Kevin says they have hospitality and joke master roles. Heather suggests an R counter. Peter suggests an auxiliary general evaluator. No, you're asking the question about auxiliary general evaluator. In this particular one, someone has chosen that rather like an assistance role, or it could be like the reserve speaker, someone who will step in if the general evaluator is not there or needs help. Depends on how much you want that person to do. Laura is saying they also have a president's opening, a rave, a rant. Oh, I like that. And a review spot. Excellent. Okay, so given the number of different types of roles that you might have, your agenda is going to look different. When you assign those roles, you should, if you're smart, already have an idea of who wants to do what. I'm wondering now, how do you get that information? How do you know who wants to do what roles in your next meeting? Can you tell me briefly in the text chat how that works for your club? A couple of questions there for you too. So whilst you're thinking about and typing it in, I think I would like to ask one or two people if they'd like to come to the microphone and tell us something about their preferred methods of creating a club agenda. Let me see if I can get Marietta. If I give you your voice, can you give us an answer to that first question? No, that's not working for you. Wonder why. It's a bit odd. It worked for us before. I'm not sure why that's not working for you now. I might just see if Kevin is there, and let's see if your microphone works, Kevin, please.
Hello there.
Yeah, I can hear you. That's fine. All right, and you're on an iPad. I know that the Click Meeting app works extremely well on an iPad, but sometimes
Yes.
it's temperamental on a PC. So Kevin, while I have you on the lectern, or at the lectern, What has been your preferred process for creating a club agenda? That is, how do you know what roles people want?
So in part, it's because you, as invariably I've been VP when I'm managing this, it's because you've been having the conversation and you understand what people have set as their own personal goals. Another area inside Easy Speak that we'll probably talk about in later sessions. But that enables you to understand where they're going. And I always try and create the maximum amount of meetings. So Easy Speak allows you to do 11 and a half months in advance. I actually create the placeholder for every single meeting and allow people to do the maximum amount, the same as Peter suggested, first in, first served, to be able to turn around and pick the roles that they want to be able to do. I normally, before the meeting, either myself as VP or whoever is the Toastmaster of the session, then locks down the agenda as best as possible to fill out those roles and actively use the features inside Easy Speak so that when you're looking at the drop down list, you can see who's done the role previously, who already has a role, and the number of days since they did that role last. And that helps you assess, based on the fact that they've already RSVP'd, how you'd actually then be populating the agenda itself.
Mhm.
I prefer people to
Excellent.
make the choice
That's
rather than
certainly
give it.
my process as well. I like the idea that there are several of you. Case, do you also set your agendas up so that people can self-assign for their roles?
I do personally, yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, let's see if we can hear from someone else. I'll just turn yours and let's see if Alex, no, we tried Alex. Heather, let's use her microphone. Turning your voice on now, Heather. Temperamental, isn't it? All right, so what we might do is make more use of the text chat and tell me in there how you go about assigning your roles once you have your agenda up and ready to go. Alex is saying that he's just commenced a member planning for roles and goals at the start of the year. Always an excellent thing to do. It's self-directed learning. And as adults in a Toastmasters education club, we should be able to do that. I liked what Kevin said also about the number of meetings that you might set in advance. In my clubs, we tend to generally only set for the next 3 months. I don't know whether it's something to do with the regional club Toastmasters and not knowing if they're going to be available in the future, but 3 months seems to be the limit for them. Whereas in my online clubs, we set it 6 months in advance. So I'd be interested to know in the text chat once again, how do you prefer to set your agendas up? Do you do it just 3 weeks in front, as Kevin was saying, almost a whole year? Okay, let's see what we have here. Ask members, oh, just need to expand my chat in order to read them better. Laura is saying that members are not very proactive, so you assign the roles based on your knowledge of them. And you're in your third year as VPE. Wow. Okay, so you ought to know what you're doing. And you do ask members if they CL, so assign roles to help them complete that. I think that's very wise, and we do that in our clubs too, so that we double check that they have their CL activated in EasySpeak. Because what I'm finding as new members come in, that is not automatic. So you need to go into your leadership chart and make sure that the CL track is switched on for them. And that means that everything they do in a role, in a meeting role, will be recorded automatically. Heather is saying they do theirs 3 weeks in advance, but planning to do more. Alex uses meeting roles for meetings in the past available at each meeting, paper-based and a month ahead. Yes, you meet only once a month, so that would work. I too like the sign-up sheet, and I do that paper-based, handing it around at meetings. I have one club where only a few of them actually do use EasySpeak. The rest of them are more used to paper-based, so we work with both. Peter is saying that in clubs where he is involved, the meeting themselves are on EasySpeak, and they select in advance, and they can make their speech slot request far in advance. I think that's very wise too. Peter is also saying that the smaller tasks are assigned meeting by meeting. Excellent. Thank you everyone for all of that. Very rich text chat. I'm going to move on in my slides now. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the process for how you customize your agenda. Many of the newer VPEs are not aware of this function, and it's not an easy one to find out about on your own. So it's a good tip for people to pass on to other VPEs that you can use the edit agenda page to add or amend or edit any of the items that are in that current agenda. So let's find out if you're all aware of the process there. Just key in whether you've used this before. And what I'm referring to now is that tiny little icon. It's a weird one. And if you select it, it allows you to insert a new agenda item immediately above the one that you've. Then it will bring you up a pop-up window. And I'll show you that next. So I'm just asking if any of you have used this before in your agendas setup. Heather is saying yes, a lot to change for different meetings. Yeah, and once you've got them set, once you've played with all those different settings, you probably will find that you'll have maybe a dozen or so templates that will be sufficient for the year. And then you don't have to do as much work from then on. So when you do click that little icon, it brings up this new agenda item, and you select what the event is, what the role or who the role will be played by, whether it has a repeat function, and what the times are for it. And I'm in the habit of choosing yes and yes for the way in which it will print on the agenda. Many people don't do that, and I find that when the member comes in and prints the agenda, they don't see everything. So it's always a good idea in my book to have yes and yes selected there for those two items. And then when you finish, you would click on the new agenda item and it would be put in place. The other thing to touch on briefly at this point is the use of the templates that you find at the bottom of your agenda edit page. It looks like Peter and Nabulo are having some connection problems, so they're in a bit of a revolving door there. So you're probably hearing that little bell ring as they come and go. In the drop-down list for the King Arthur's Playground, you'll see that there's only a few templates available. We're trying to keep that lean and mean. I've seen some clubs where they've got 25 or more templates stored in there, and this really does build up and build up. So whenever you get above 15, there is always a little message to you. I think I've got a slide. The next one. Go. Oh, 16. So if you have 16 or more, it will remind you to delete any that you don't regularly use. So what I'd like to ask of you is whether or not you know how many templates you have in your agenda edit screen. Yes, Heather, I'm reading your comment there about the repeat buttons, and sometimes it does give you an error depending on what role it is that you're asking it to repeat. And as Kevin is saying, you should be able to just set it as a non-repeating role by leaving that item blank. Okay, Laura, that's pretty lean and mean. Excellent. And Nabulo is saying about 6 templates. It could be up to 16 for Heather. And I know in two of my clubs we've got 16. But it is good to keep it lower than that. So as you know that there are several different parts of the edit agenda screen that can confuse the new VPE. And some are not even aware of this template area until they scroll right to the bottom. Marietta, I would suggest that between 12 and 16 templates are sufficient. And I use some that will have 2 speakers plus an educational, a speechathon, a contest, and several others that have different looks about them, depending on what you are in the habit of doing for your special meetings. You know, I have one for a dinner meeting, for example, and another one for an induction meeting at the beginning of the year. So Heather is suggesting in regards to the repeat, it comes up with an error, and then you need to go back in and it should be available to select. Yep. Kevin's got templates for 3 speakers, 4 speakers with an educational, an election, contests for 2, contests for 4, moments of truth and end of year. And that should get you by. So if you've got more than that, you probably do need to have a look at what's in them and see if you really need to keep them. I'm just going to go back to the slides I missed just to make sure that you're aware of where to do this changing. And you can, of course, delete some, and you can also base a new agenda on another template. So have a look at that when next you're in that place. This is where you'd set it. So sometimes if you want to use a different layout and you've got different things in the agenda you're working on that time, you would choose that one called use this agenda to replace the template and then save it. And if you're doing a brand new one, as I've suggested here, called the speech contest online, which we're experimenting with, then it would become a brand new template, and therefore you would click the icon that says new template. And when you're ready to delete, from the drop down and click delete. So I think once you get used to it, I think you'll find that it's quite straightforward. Right, having a look now at the questions that have come up. Nabulo has a question regarding meeting numbers. We create 3 meetings, January, February, March, and if we decided to have an additional club meeting in February, yes, the meeting gets numbered number 4. Absolutely, and that is a little tedious. I haven't found a workaround for that, but let's find out if anyone else has. So if you've seen that happen before and you've got a workaround that would help Nabulo, please text that in. All right, so the other types of meetings for which you might need different kinds of agendas are the committee meetings. And I use these now to make sure that the people you want to come to that meeting actually have to go into EasySpeak and sign in. So you're looking at an example from King Arthur's Playground there, and Minnie's set this one up, and she expects all of her 7 or 8 executives to come to that meeting. And Alex has given you an answer there, Nabula. It's the same as what you do already, just renumber them. So we'll see if there's any other workarounds for you. So I have another question for everyone in the audience though. Do you use your EasySpeak to create your committee meetings? So you can just say yes or no in the text chat. Okay, not many. Okay. One of the things that I find that they get lost a little bit. The meetings for committees are often in a different place to where you might expect them, and people find it hard to find them. Heather, I see that your audio is back on. Did you want to speak to us? No? Okay. All right, I shall move on. So here's the steps where you use the EasySpeak to create your committee meeting. It's the same as the other one, only this time you choose the committee meeting, put in the date, the time, and the location. So in this case, you might just be able to read that writing that the venue is actually going to be the Round Table Virtual Meeting Room or the King Arthur's Playground. And any of the agenda items that you want to put in place for that committee can go into that message body. And when the executives sign up, they will see those. And this is the page where you are hoping that your club officers will log in and sign up. So it looks the same as a regular kind of meeting sign up, but doesn't have roles attached to it. So if you're wanting to explore that next time round, do have a look at the club committee create meeting setup. Another one that you might use for special events like a speech contest, where you just want it to be notifying people and no assignments, you can use the other event. Has anyone used that before in EasySpeak? So where you create something for a special event, like an online speech contest, the upcoming speech craft, or some other special event for which you are just sending out an invitation. And many people are not aware of that as a useful tool, so you might like to look into that one as well. And if you just want to experiment with that, rather than do it in your own club site, remember to go to the King Arthur's Playground. And for those who may not have seen it, my login name, I'll put it in again. So Minnie is the VPE, and I'll put the link in for that place at the end. So at this point, let's see if there's any other questions that people want to ask. And Heather, I'll just see if you do want to ask a question, otherwise I'll give the mic to someone else. Okay, let me see who else might like to ask a question. To let me know if you would like to ask a question, what you can try now is the emoticons in the attendee list in the bottom right-hand corner, where you see a little smiley face. If you want to ask a question, click on the raise hand That will let me choose who to give the microphone to. And it looks like you've tried on varying devices there, Peter, to get back in, and I can see you 3 times. All right, let's move on. Oh, just to finish that other event, if you choose that one, it actually appears as an item in the discussion forum. But that poses a different question for you to answer now, is do you make use of the discussion forum? And I can see you've had a little bit of texting in there about daylight savings. Excellent. It's a good way to be in connection with your membership. Many of us use other methods like emails and social media, but for me, I like the discussion forum in EasySpeak because it allows you to store valuable conversations and documentation. So Laura, were you having a problem with the setting of the time? Because that should be done in the control panel so that the system knows what your new GMT plus sign time is. Yeah, you do need, once the time zone changes, and for us in Australia that will be twice a year, of course, then you will need to go into the control panel and change it back. All right. In this section, I was wanting to talk a little bit about the way in which you might print out your agendas. Some people don't like the way EasySpeak prints agendas. I'd like to find out from you whether you use the EasySpeak printed agenda or whether you create a new one separately in Word. So could you answer that in the text chat, please? Yes, there are some little glitches that have been a problem, Heather. Yes, I've found that too, Laura, that when you do print, that the margins seem to be small if you want to fit it on one page. So on my printer, I now ask it to print both sides. So it's still one page, but you need to turn it over. Okay, yes, some people do it in different formats. And to me, that is doubling the amount of tasks that the VPE might have to do. Absolutely, Heather, that there is a little glitch in the system that if someone has not chosen their manual, it prevents you from printing the agenda, which is annoying. So quite often I have to go in and just select something at random, knowing that that will allow me to print it, and we'll have to correct it when we get to the meeting manually. Okay, there are other methods of getting a printed a printed agenda, and some people like this to be quite mean and lean, and so this is why I've got this little one showing here where there's very little detail and an uncluttered appearance. Okay, Brenda, you go to the trouble of pasting the info into Word. Wow, you're doing a lot for your club. Have you tried using the agenda for mobile devices? I find that this is a really nifty little tool because it not only shows the agenda items, but there's a panel or a tab right on the end there for the timer, and it will put in the actual time duration for each of those agenda items. So just tell me in the text chat if you've used the mobile agenda before. When you have many members in the club who use iPads and other devices, you might like to advise them to look at that one on the day. And you might be asking, well, where do I find that? And from memory, it's still just listed under the meetings menu. That's interesting. You find that it's invasive in a real meeting, Kevin. Interesting. Do you want to explain what you mean by that?
I suppose I just find technology is getting more and more invasive in a normal bricks and mortar meeting. So people are bringing along laptops and the secretary's there typing away on their laptop, taking the minutes. People are looking at their phones, and I just find it's a bit disruptive and disrespectful. And I suppose in the context of a standard bricks and mortar meeting, I think the convention of actually paying attention to what's going on is important. The new Toastmaster app, for example, I find that even more invasive of a normal meeting. It's very, very different when you're online and in an environment like Firebirds, whereby it's really handy to have all that information on the screen and
Yes.
it presents really, really well. But a traditional meeting, I just think it's discourteous to have all the technology around.
Okay, well, thank you for that perspective, Kevin. One thing that I have done for one of my meetings is to display the mobile agenda on an overhead projector. We have the luxury of having one of those large screens built into our venue, and we
Yep, that
usually
would be
have one
great.
of these
Yeah,
up on view. And yeah,
I've
so that's one
I've
way of
run
making
the
use.
entire meeting through a set of slides like that. So the whole meeting, each point is a presentation on a slide, um,
Mm.
and found it very, very helpful when getting new Toastmastering, because all of a sudden you've actually got a guide step by step almost with the each of the slides representing the sections in the meeting.
That's a brilliant idea. Oh, I think I'd like to try that one. Thanks, Kevin. Now,
I can
Kev,
send you my PowerPoint.
oh, lovely. Thank you. I knew you would be sharing. Now, Peter, I notice you're on a mobile device now, and I've given you voice as well. Would you like to try your microphone? No, I'm not hearing anything from Peter, so I'm not sure if it's working for you. Anyone else who does want to voice an opinion, just raise your hand as I described before. So Heather, you have put in place a little icon. What's that one? You've left the room. Okay, let me know when you come back. All right, so Heather, would you like to tell us something? Sure, if that's working for you, Heather. See the green microphone icon? Nope, not yet. Okay, let's move on. So that is
If
the
if
agenda for
using the
mobile.
if using the mobile app or anything like that, then your active microphone is shown as a pulsing red mic on the top right hand side if it's active.
Ah, thank you for that. Yes. No, we weren't hearing you, Heather. What a pity. All right, we can move on. So in the last section here, I thought we'd just work through some of the details in requesting and scheduling a speech, because quite often it's up to the VPE to do the requesting, as well as the scheduling, especially where you've got members in your club who are reluctant to use the system. But you do want to have all of the details showing in your database. So I'll ask the question first, and you can text it in, whether you do on a regular basis or every now and then request a speech on behalf of a member. Kevin says yes. Marietta says all the time. Laura says at every meeting. Yeah, okay. Okay, so you put in normal speeches, Heather, but not an educational. Of course, the whole system or agenda needs to include an educational when you're editing it. Otherwise, you can't schedule an educational. And Alex says most of the time, except for new members who are tech savvy. And Brenda says, yes, we've started using them. So you're still training the club. Any other comments on that one? Kevin, yours is still on if you wanted to comment.
Nope. Just an accidental press of the keyboard.
That's all right. See if Nabulo has anything to add here. Switched on your mic there for you. Nope. Okay. Let's see if Laura can turn some off. It limits me to the number of mics that we can have, so I'll need to turn yours off, Kevin, for a moment in order to turn Laura's on.
Okay, I don't know if we can hear me now.
Ah, we do. Hello.
Yay, fantastic. So
All right. Tell us a bit about your requesting and scheduling.
okay. For me, I find that it's okay. I struggled a bit initially, especially about what you just mentioned, where I wanted to fit an educational, but I'd use the speaker slot to try and slot in an educational, and it did not like that much. So I've learned how that works, and I'm quite comfortable with it, with how it works. I love that it keeps track of the different manuals because some of our members speak on different manuals, so that they don't use one manual sequentially. So you find that for their record, there's quite a long list. So yeah, but I like it. The one question I have regarding the scheduling is what's the significance? Because I read somewhere that rather use the VPE on the left-hand side, rather schedule speeches there versus using it on the agenda. And I prefer assigning them on the agenda directly because that works better for me. So on the screen that you have right now versus the one under VPE on the left-hand side, I would like you to just maybe clarify that one for me.
Yes, certainly. It is quicker to do it on this screen for another member because you click into the little icon that has a little silhouetted figure on it, and then you choose the person, and it pops up that little bit that's at the bottom there. So you choose the person, and then you can go ahead and request the speech title and workbook and date all in that one place. But when you're doing several, so let's say you're at the beginning of a month and you've got several requests for speeches and you want to do a bunch of them together, then I would use the schedule the speech icon from the left-hand navigation bar, because that allows you to move around in the different meetings and very quickly schedule speeches in different ones, and you don't have to move from one screen to the other. So does that answer your question, Nabulo?
Yes, it does. It makes it much easier. Thank you so much. I understand that a bit better.
Excellent. All right. I'll get you to drop your mic again. And we'll see if Laura is there or Heather. I'm getting a bit of feedback, so I'm going to turn yours off, Nicole. So Laura, are you there?
I am here, but I don't actually have any questions or points to raise.
Yeah, I hear that, but it's very distorted voice. Let me just turn mine on. Okay, I can hear someone typing. Is that you, Laura?
Yes, I'm just saying I don't really have any questions or points to raise, so it's probably not worth the effort of getting around any technical hitches.
Thanks for that. I'll turn your voice. It's giving me feedback. But thanks for trying. All right. So requesting and scheduling a speech is, a thing that you would do frequently, and depending on how many you're doing, you would then choose the tool correspondingly. And it is similar for requesting an educational. And if you're doing that perhaps for a club officer where you might have them doing educationals on a frequent basis, and you might have discussed that at your executive meetings as to who was doing the next educational, then you as the VP would first make sure that the agenda includes an educational item, and then you can go ahead and schedule on behalf of that club officer. So that makes for a nice question for you all once more, is how often do you have educationals in your meetings? Okay, so I see that comment from, where's that? Let me just scroll down to make my text chat a little bigger to read it. Okay, in the past it was request this year scheduled 3 in for the lucky victims, says Marietta. Thank you for that. I try to encourage my officers to do at least one educational if they've already gone through their CC manual. I find that they are a little bit reluctant. They don't really have the confidence until that time. But then I like to get them to do at least one in their time as an officer, or 2 if possible, because in many cases they will be aiming to get their advanced leadership bronze. Yes, quite right, Kevin. You and I are thinking there. And yeah, pushing in, I like to call it encouraging so that they don't feel pressured, because quite often they do. So it's interesting as to how many educationals we go through. I imagine, Kevin, that you and I have probably done every one of them and in every manual so far because of our roles. Just to finish up with, this is the screen or one of the screens where you would be scheduling speeches. And I've just picked out one of the dates, and this is what I was explaining to Nabulo, that here on this page you can assign or schedule the speeches from the drop-down list and then move on to the next date very quickly. All right, I think we've explored that to death. Oh, except for this last point, and I think Kevin made it before. He said he likes to make sure that we know what we're scheduling with some sort of forward planning site about the goals of the people involved. If they want to complete a certain number, then we would try to ensure that they had those opportunities. Okay, let me move forward again. Oh, this one I put in place because I thought it would generate another kind of discussion with you, is that quite often people think that they must work through one manual at a time, completing project 1 through to 5, and then start the next. Is that what happens for you, or do you also encourage them to work on 2 or more advanced manuals? Oops. So Laura's asking a question. Are we supposed to receive an email notification when a member requests a speech slot? Yes, you are. If you are the VPE, Laura, and you've set it in the control panel correctly, you should get that notification. Sometimes it also goes to all officers, depending on what you set, as Kevin is saying. So Marietta is saying as many advanced manuals as they like. Excellent. And I'm sure that they'll find many different projects that they will be able to work on because of that. And sometimes when I'm scheduling a contest agenda, I use the manual called Competition and Other Speeches. Have you found that one in the list of drop-downs? Because that's very handy for just putting in place a speech contest without having to know the title of what that's to be, because that's not known until the day of the contest. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, I'm coming to the end of tonight's session. So let us move through just to see if there's any other things that I've missed. We might have asked these questions already. You could answer that in the text chat. What's your preferred agenda template, the one that you use 90% of the time? Or if you've already answered that, you might, what's your process for prompting the speech requests? Yeah, some of these questions we've already covered. Thank you, Peter. Wonderful to have you with us tonight. So just before you go, what I would like to let everyone know is that we would like to have another one of these on July 28th. And if you'd like to co-present, or if you've got some suggestions for what we cover, then I'd be really happy for you to communicate with me. But thanks for joining us, Peter. So I'll move to my next slide. The 3 things that I thought you might want to do more on are the basics of control panel. So these are the questions that I get asked most often in my help desk role. Or would you like about the meeting emails and the forums within your site? Or something about the club charts and the goals? So rather than you having to designate what they might be tonight, have a think about that, and in the Facebook group, put in place some of your thoughts about what we should cover. So Heather, you want all 3, is that right? We could certainly have a go at that. But this list isn't exhaustive, so if there's other things, then certainly put them into the Facebook. Thanks, Marietta. And thank you also for your thoughts there, Marietta. And 5 a.m. for Brenda. Okay, well, it's time to start work for you. Excellent. Thank you so much for contributing so much of your time and your thoughts. Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. We're now at the top of the hour, and I need to say thank you so much to all of you once again. And a special thanks to Kevin for stepping into the breach at the last minute. So with that, I'm now going to stop the recording. Bye, everyone.